Hey friends, welcome back to Hot Air with me, Joshua Robert. This is the podcast where we talk about the stuff that people love to scream about online, but rarely slow down long enough to actually understand. Things like culture, power, politics, trauma, healing, and the occasional absolutely unhinged take that somehow ends up being repeated on a national stage. Just be clear, I'm not fucking around today. And today we need to talk about one of those wild takes. Recently, Donald Trump claimed that the Civil Rights Act discriminates against white people and that it makes white Americans look bad and that it somehow holds them back. And when I heard that, my first reaction wasn't anger, it was genuine confusion because that statement only works if you either don't know what the Civil Rights Act actually is, or you're counting on the people listening not to know either. So today, we're not doing vibes. We're not doing everyone's entitled to their opinion, and we're definitely not doing historical amnesia, okay? We're doing timelines, facts, context, receipts, another club, another bar, another show. Because truly, facts are sometimes the only way to stay sane. This episode is about why civil rights laws still matter in 2026. We're going to talk a little bit about DEI and why women, Black Americans, and LGBTQ plus people are still affected by discrimination, even when the law technically says that everyone is equal now. That's lion-ass bitch. Because equality on paper does not erase inequality in practice. And history doesn't fucking disappear just because it makes some people uncomfortable. And I'm gonna be heated this episode. Like this gets me going. So let's start where the conversation always needs to start, with what the Civil Rights Act actually did. But I'm gonna take a breath. We're gonna do the intro music. Okay, so let's hit it. Part 1. What the Civil Rights Act actually did and why it had to exist. Something that the president doesn't know, okay? Let's go through this. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 did not appear out of thin air. It wasn't some random liberal idea dreamed up to shame white people or rewrite history. It was a direct response to centuries of discrimination that was legal, normalized, and aggressively enforced by the government itself. Before 1964, discrimination in the United States was not subtle and it was not hidden. Employers could openly refuse to hire you because you were Black. Hotels could legally deny you a room because you were Black. Restaurants could refuse to serve you because you were Black. Schools could bar your enrollment because you were Black. Neighborhoods could exclude you because you were Black. Banks could deny you loans if they would even let you apply because you were Black. And none of this was considered controversial. It was policy. It was tradition. It was just the way things were. The Civil Rights Act made one very simple and very threatening statement to people in power. You don't get to do that anymore. No, that's it. That's the law. Title VII of the Act made it illegal to discriminate in employment based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. It did not say you must hire someone unqualified. It did not say white people are bad. It said hiring decisions cannot be based on identity instead of merit, because for most of American history, merit had absolutely nothing to do with who got opportunities. President Lyndon B. Johnson explained this reality in a way that people love to quote, but rarely sit with, when he said, "You do not take a person who has been hobbled by chains and liberate them, bring them up to the starting line, and then say, you are free to compete with all the others, and still justly believe you have been completely fair." I think I read that right. I hope I did. That quote matters because it acknowledges something that people still resist admitting. The playing field was never level. It was built unevenly on purpose. The Civil Rights Act wasn't about giving anyone an advantage. It was about stopping ongoing harm. It was about removing barriers that had been intentionally constructed and maintained for generations. When people say the law makes white people look bad, what they're really reacting to is historical accountability. The law reminds us that discrimination wasn't rare or accidental or the fault of a few bad individuals. It was systemic. Everyone did it. It was profitable. It was socially acceptable. And here's the part that makes people especially uncomfortable. Without this law, discrimination would still be legal today. Not hypothetical, not exaggerated, legal. Employers could still say, we don't hire people like you, and no one could stop them. The idea that the Civil Rights Act now discriminates against white people assumes something deeply flawed, which is that equality itself is harmful, that fairness is a zero-sum game, that if someone else is protected, someone else must be punished. But protection is not punishment. Accountability is not discrimination. And being required to compete on equal footing is not oppression. What the Civil Rights Act actually did was remove the ability to exclude people without consequence. And for those who benefited from that exclusion, losing that unchecked power can feel like something was taken away from them, even when nothing was, because equality doesn't take rights away. It just stops giving unearned advantages. Part 2. Women's rights, when equality is shockingly recent. Let's talk about women, because this is where the myth of we already fixed this really falls apart. People love to act like sexism is some dusty relic from the 1800s, like women got the right to vote and everything is magically evened out. But the truth is, women's legal equality is incredibly recent, and its absence shaped generations of financial, professional, and personal outcomes. Women got the right to vote in 1920, which sounds progressive until you realize that many women alive today had mothers and grandmothers who were already adults before that right existed. But voting was just the beginning, and honestly, it was the easiest box to check. Financial independence took way longer. Until 1974, women could be denied a bank account on a line of credit without a husband or male co-signer. That means a woman could work full-time, earn her own money, and still be legally treated like a financial child. The Equal Credit Opportunity Act of 1974 didn't give women special treatment. It simply stopped banks from saying, we don't trust you with money because you're a woman. Credit cards followed a similar timeline, with many banks continuing to require male co-signers well into the late 1970s and even the 1980s. I was born in the 80s, the very, 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 very late 80s, but that shit's crazy. Now that matters because credit is how people build wealth. It's how they buy homes, it's how they start businesses, how they survive emergencies and invest in their futures. When women were locked out of that system for decades, that loss didn't just disappear when the law changed. It compounded. The Equal Pay Act of 1963 made it illegal to pay women less than men for the same work. Yet women today still earn less on average. And no, it's not because women are bad negotiators or choose easier jobs. It's because women were historically pushed into lower paying industries, penalized for motherhood, and excluded from leadership roles that actually move the pay scale. And then there's bodily autonomy. Roe v. Wade was overturned in 2022, meaning women lost a right their mothers fought for, their grandmothers dreamed of, and their daughters assumed was settled. So when people say women already have equality, what they're really saying is, I personally don't experience barriers anymore. But not seeing a barrier doesn't mean it's gone, bitch. It usually means you're not the one hitting it. And when someone claims that laws protecting women are now discriminatory toward men, like, please give me a fucking break, men. What they're actually reacting to is the fact that women are no longer required to ask permission to exist independently. That is not oppression. That's progress catching up far later than it should have. Part 3, Black Americans and how discrimination multiplies through generations. If you still want to understand why civil rights laws matter in 2026, you have to understand how discrimination doesn't just harm individuals, it shapes entire generations. Slavery ended in 1865, but freedom without resources is not freedom, it's survival mode. Jim Crow laws enforced segregation well into the 1960s, legally separating Black Americans from education, from employment, housing, and opportunity. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 ended legal segregation, but it did not undo the damage that was already done. The Fair Housing Act wasn't passed until 1968, meaning Black Americans were legally barred from buying homes in many neighborhoods until less than 60 years ago, people. Redlining, a government-backed policy, denied mortgages to Black families based on zip codes, not creditworthiness, which prevented them from building equity, while white families accumulated generational wealth. Homes are the primary way that Americans build wealth. They pay for college, fund retirements, and provide safety nets. When an entire group is locked out of that system for generations, you don't fix it with one law and a bootstraps lecture, okay? Even today, neighborhoods remain segregated by income. Schools are funded by property taxes, and hiring networks favor proximity and familiarity. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. addressed this, actually, the day I'm recording this is MLK Day, addressed this directly when he said, a society that has done something special against, I'm going to pause. I'm going to pause because I'm going to say his word. I'm going to use his words because I want to do the quote right, and I feel weird saying it. But there's an N word coming up, but it's not the worst N word, but it's still an N word that makes me feel uncomfortable. Okay. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. addressed this directly when he said, a society that has done something special against the Negro for hundreds of years must now do something special for the Negro. I feel so uncomfortable saying that, but that's his quote, okay? That statement was not about favoritism. It was about repair. Equality does not erase history. It responds to it. So when people claim that civil rights laws or DEI unfairly advantage Black Americans, what they're ignoring is the cumulative effect of being excluded from opportunity for centuries. You don't start a race at mile 10 and call it fairness. And something I frequently think about when I'm trying to explain this to people, there was a video I watched where they had people of different races. I think they were high school students line up at one end of the football field. And somebody was asking a question and said, like, for every answer that is yes, walk 10 steps, right? And it was things like, do your parents own a home? Or do they have multiple cars? Or like things, now I'm really messing up my train of thought here. But it was basically about how things get passed down in generations. And the white kids, for all these questions, took steps. And the Black kids were left very close to the starting line. And this was just such a great example of showing how, sure, like the Civil Rights Act came into play, but what? People are released from slavery and someone's just going to let them buy a home. With what money? They have no credit score. They probably, depending on who they run into, who's working at the bank, they're not going to be given a bank account. Like, it's not as simple as just saying, oh, slavery was over. Like, civil rights is not a thing. I am going to work on a much better explanation of that video. Perhaps I'll find it and put it in the show notes, but it really paints a very clear picture of all of this. Part 4, LGBTQ rights, which is all brand new. Let's talk about the queers and our rights, because this timeline is so recent, it should end the conversation immediately. Stonewall happened in 1969. Not ancient history, not medieval times, 1969. For decades after that, being openly gay could get you fired, evicted, arrested, or worse, and frankly, it still could. Sodomy laws were not struck down nationwide until 2003. Marriage equality did not happen until 2015. If you were an adult before that, you lived most of your life in a country where your relationship was legally inferior. Employment protections for LGBTQ plus people didn't exist nationwide until 2020, meaning people could legally be fired for who they loved or who they were, which in California I could get fired for no fucking reason, and it could be because my boss doesn't like that I'm gay. Trans rights are currently being rolled back in real time with access to healthcare, public spaces, and legal recognition under attack. So when people ask why LGBTQ plus people still need their rights or have pride, the simple answer is because we just fucking got them. And some of them are already being taken the fuck away. Equality that is this fragile needs protection and not mockery or people questioning why we need to stand up for ourselves. And no, protecting LGBTQ plus people does not harm straight people, okay? It simply stops discrimination from being socially acceptable. Part 5. DEI, why it exists, and why it makes people so uncomfortable. I actually don't even know if it exists anymore. I don't even know what the fuck Trump did with all that. But DEI exists because bias exists. That's the whole reason. It does not force companies to hire unqualified people. It forces them to examine whether their system quietly favors one type, a white type, of candidate over everyone else. Hiring has always been influenced by comfort and familiarity. People hire people who look like them, think like them, and remind them of themselves. When leadership is overwhelmingly white and straight and male by design, that familiarity reproduces itself over and over and over again. And DEI doesn't punish white people. It removes their ability to discriminate without consequences. And that is why people are angry, because being held to the same standard as everyone else feels like oppression because you're little pussy ass bitches when you are used to being the default. Equality doesn't take anything away. It just stops handing things to white straight men automatically. I am so heated today, and I'm so glad this episode is literally 20 minutes maybe, because I just really had to talk about this because it was driving me up the wall. And I'm like, why aren't people angry about this? The people in Congress, anyone, I want to hear people scream off the rooftops. It's what the fuck are you talking about, Trump? You are uneducated. You are a waste of air. You are a horrible president. You are a hot ass fucking mess. And I cannot wait for you to be out of office. Why is nobody saying that? Why? It blows my mind. Call a bitch out. Call it like you see it, honey. And the wonderful part is that I can have that opinion, okay? Sure, I have a green card. I can live in a country. I love San Diego. I love California. I do like America. I think every country on the planet is a hot ass fucking mess and has its issues. I am allowed to speak up against those things. I'm allowed to think the current president is a hot ass mess. I'm also allowed to think Joe Biden probably shouldn't have been president as well. I am allowed to pick apart things that I don't agree with while not being deported, while not being canceled, while not having my social media banned. Things are happening and it makes me a little nervous, but I stand by everything I said in this episode. I stand by the fact that I think Donald Trump is a horrible human. And I really look forward to somebody coming in and erasing everything that he has done so that we can have a little bit more equality, okay? Don't talk to me about, the cost of housing is going to go down. I don't give the fuck about the cost of housing when there's a racist in office, okay? No, I can't handle it. Fuck you and your low percent interest rate on your house. And you're happy about that. Meanwhile, people are just being arrested and beaten and jumped in the street and tear gassed and kneed in the face by ICE officers. Fuck you and your new home that you want to buy and your low interest rate. You can shove it up your ass. The only people that are saying that are white privileged people who don't get anything because everything has been handed to them. That's it. That's where I stand. And me, I'm white as fuck too. So I get it. We're hot ass mess. Okay, reeling it in here. Here's the truth. No one wants to say out loud, okay? The Civil Rights Act did not break America. It exposed it. It showed us how unequal the system really was and still is. It did not make white people look bad. We did that for ourselves. It made discrimination visible, and visibility feels threatening to the people who benefited from silence, who benefited from the system. History didn't end when the law was passed, and justice doesn't expire because someone feels uncomfortable. Get over yourself. Equality is not oppression, accountability is not discrimination, and fairness is not something that we move past and get over. It's something we protect. Ugh, I'm going to go make a strong-ass martini right now. Thank you for listening to this very short episode of Hot Air, my rant today. If this episode made you think, share it. If it made you feel uncomfortable, fucking good. Sit with it. Feel uncomfy, okay? Follow me on Instagram and TikTok at _hotairpod. I'm going to take my tone down. Visit my website, hotairwithjoshuarobert.com, to shop my merch, to submit your listener stories and topic suggestions, and maybe respond with your opinion on things I've said today. So let's keep fighting the good fight, or whatever that saying is, and I will see you next Tuesday.